All right, guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're talking about the Deep Roots Sorcerer Subclass. This is from the Herbarium Botanical Supplement.
Not the ground roots, the deep roots.
Deep Roots. So if you're new to the series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities.
Yep.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Sourcebook or Pathfinder potentially bundle.
Or
If you,
something else.
yeah, if you want it, hey, we're gonna give you something if you win.
That's right.
The default is the source book from D&D bundle.
Yep.
If you want to swap it out for something else, we can negotiate that.
Yes.
That being said, let's get right into this, Alex. What do we get?
We're a druid. We're going to get some additional spells. We're not a druid. We're a sorcerer. But we're going to get some druid spells. See what I did there? Animal friendship, earth tremor, bark skin, locate animals or plants, plant growth, wind wall, control water, grasping vine, commune with nature, and wrath of nature. So I said, not a druid, but that's a druid spell list if I ever saw one.
Oh, for sure.
And I will stress, this is each of these spells count as sorcerer spells, but they do not count against the number of sorcerer spells you know, and you do know these additional spells. This is not a warlock.
Yes.
You're not
Thank
forced
goodness.
to choose these spells if you want them. You actually just get them, which is great because we all know that a sorcerer's biggest problem is spells no.
And you do get a good mixture here of RP and combat spells.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe it skews a little bit on the roleplay side of things, but
But that's fine.
also at level 1 we have Nature Child. Being from the far bustle of civilization feels like second nature to you. From first level, if you don't already have it, you gain proficiency in survival and nature checks. So 2 extra free proficiencies.
Yeah.
Take it.
Still level 1 because, yay, let's have some fun. When natural ground is beneath you, it responds to your needs by changing its shape about you. Difficult terrain, if caused by natural materials, doesn't affect you. When landing from a height onto natural ground, thick moss grows to soften your fall, giving you resistance to this manner of falling damage. When climbing natural objects such as trees and cliffs, you always seem to find good purchase, making any climbing-relating checks such as athletics and acrobatics, and doing so with advantage. So a lot of RP and exploration-based things,
Yes,
and
definitely.
some difficult terrain effect for combat as well.
Yes, as long as it isn't magical.
Yes.
It does have to be natural.
Yes.
So it's circumstantial, but it definitely can come up.
And difficult, also like if it's like a fallen building, wouldn't
Sure.
because it's all natural materials it specifies.
Gray area.
Yep.
It's a folding building. What's the building made of? It's made of stone. Stone's natural. Yeah, I'd be like,
Is it? But it's been worked. It's one of those things. Okay, next.
Anyways, level 6, we have allelopathic reaction. That's what we're going to go with. You gain resistance to poison and acid damage. Okay. Whenever you start casting a spell that deals poison or acid damage, choose one of the following additional effects. The first is the air around you takes on a toxic quality. One creature of your choice within 5 feet of you takes an additional 2d6 poison or acid damage depending on the type of damage you're casting.
Yep.
The second option is acid or poison, depending on the type of the spell. Suffuses the earth within a 30-foot radius. Up to 4 creatures of your choosing within the affected area take 1d6 of the applicable damage type. I will say here, the wording is a little unclear. My interpretation was that it's 30-foot radius around you.
Yes.
From where you cast the spell.
The way it's
So it
written,
could
that's what
easily
makes
be
sense. But it
seen
could be
otherwise.
it could be also the target location of the spell if it's like a targeting a single person. But
Right.
assume it's around you.
Yes, that's the interpretation.
Level 14, we have sticks and stones. The ground beneath you is as familiar to you as your own body, and you are able to emulate its profound steadiness. As a bonus action, you can enter this meditative state and gain resistance to piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning damage. Notice it does not say from non-magical sources. That's all
Correct.
BPS damage for up to 1 minute. Additionally, while this state lasts, you can make any concentration checks with advantage. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest or unless you spend 5 sorcery points to use it again. And sweet mercy, do I love the fact that they let you spend sorcery points to use an ability again.
Yes. Though it is a little expensive.
It is, but if you want the resistance and more importantly to me, the advantage on concentration checks, which means you wouldn't necessarily have to take Warcaster if you didn't want to because you know this is coming.
And lastly, we have the Master of All at level 18. You gain immunity to acid and poison damage. In addition, any spell you cast or any effect that you create ignores resistance or immunity to acid and poison damage and deals damage as normal.
God, that's not much, but doesn't seem like much, I should say. But so
It's
many
important.
things in this game resist poison damage.
Yes.
That you're like, it always feels bad to take poison damage spells, but now you're like, I'm coming for you, son.
Yes. It does take a hot minute to get on there, though, because it's level 18.
It is. It's just
But the thing that is nice to counteract that point is that it's acid or poison, and acid is much less
it needs to be more acid spells.
It is resisted. We'll get to that.
And most of them don't do that much damage.
Right.
Which makes no sense because you'll make force spells and nature spell, force and necrotic and other things that aren't resisted as much either. They don't do 4d4 damage instead of 7 to 80,000 damage.
They usually have like some kind of additional effect.
I'm sorry, that was a sore subject.
Or splash or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, that's all the abilities. So let's jump right into the rating portion. First up is the roleplay asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background. That's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass, how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
That's right.
So, that being said, you do get, as I mentioned earlier, some good RP spell options that can go on there as well, and they are free to learn, which is nice. Yep. You get 2 solid proficiencies that are thematic as well. Survival and nature both make sense, goes along with how it works, and, great for exploration, which also goes with your other level 1 ability, which is the anti-difficult terrain, climbing bonuses for exploration, the fall damage resistance kind of thing. All tie in very well. Lots of focus in the roleplay in the exploration side of things.
Yep. Which is cool, because that's how you normally would put a sorcerer in.
Right.
Exploration, more because of its charisma, if it would feel more, more social interaction with other people kind of thing. This is a very cool flavor RP option for sorcerers.
For sure. The resistances are somewhat niche, though acid and poison damage do come up quite a bit, especially poison damage. You can have traps or bogs or things like that can have...
And there's a lot of even natural creatures that like have a poison breath or like a poison effect of their attacks, or when you hit them, you get poisoned. Like a lot of plants and things like that have that.
Sure. And there's some niche with the BPS resist plus concentration. I mean, if something is, you're doing a puzzle or trap or something, and something is constantly hitting you, and you want to try to have a concentration spell, or something pokey is hitting you, you want to reduce that. Sure. I mean, it can come up, but it's more on the niche side of things. Try to use that for RP. It's most likely going to be combat.
Yes.
All that being said, we went with a 3.5 out of 5 in the roleplay. You get some solid options, but some of them are a little bit more on the circumstantial side of things.
Yep.
And they are all focused, as Alex said, on exploration, where typically your stats are going to fall more on social with like charisma and stuff like that too. So it's kind of like one of those, instead of focusing double down on things you're good at, it kind of broadens your potential.
It makes you a bard a little bit, as far as the jack of all trades a little bit, which is cool. It's a different options. With the combat side of things, starting off looking at the spell list, obviously you get some defensive stuff like Bark Skin, but you got a lot of druidy based CC things, Grasping Vine, Wind Wall, things like that. But are Wrath of Nature's full on offense, but more CC and control stuff. Very very druidy spell list. Soft Ground's going to help you for sure if you needed to try to get up a tree. If you needed some higher point of advantage, you didn't want to cast yourself fly. You can get up there with ease, with advantage on acrobatic or athletic checks to get up there. Falling damage not being a problem for you, also great. Non-magical difficult terrain, also not a problem. Don't know how much that's going to come up, but not a problem for you if it happens. Of course, giving yourself resistance to poison, because it is one of the more common elemental damages, and then acid, which is less common, but again, it's not costing you anything to have it. Always great. And then giving you some extra damage, both for poison or acid, when you do those spells. Again, the challenge we hinted at earlier with those is before you get to ignore resistance to poison and acid damage, a lot of stuff resists poison damage, so taking that damage type feels like there's going to be some give and take there. You get to do extra damage, but it's going to be resisted a lot of times anyway.
More often, yeah.
But the acid thing, I've always loved. The acid damage type is a more interesting and rare because it doesn't happen a ton. Mm-hmm. The problem is, again, for whatever reason, a lot of the acid spells don't do the same amount of damage that like fire or cold or poison and other things like that would do at the similar level anyway. But I don't know if it's because so few things resist acid.
Probably. But also, there's just not a whole lot of spells in general that even deal acid.
Yeah, there's just not that many to start with. Because, heck, we did a little side campaign, and I had a black, Dragonborn, or not Dragon, but Black Dragon Origin. There we go. sorcerer, so like playing with acid spells and things like that, I was like, I'm having to like delve through all of the source content to try to find like more than 4 or 5
Yeah, there's
acid
not
spells.
very many.
I was like, that's not that many to pick from. But when you do get to use them, you're getting extra damage, so great. The challenge also again with that area of effect thing, assuming it's around you, which goes into the same thing with the sticks and stones thing, is yet you can give yourself BPS resistance for a minute, but I will remind you, and I will stress this, if you're new to this, for whatever silly reason, this is the first video you found, sorcerers are made of very wet paper. No armor class, no health. So yeah, your resistance to BPS for a minute is great and all, but ideally you're not getting hit anyway. You're not a barbarian, paladin, fighter, ranger, whatever else that's got more health or armor class than you, which is literally everything but wizard.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, good to have, but to me the bigger thing is that's the concentration. But we checked with an advantage again because you wouldn't necessarily have to take Warcaster if you didn't want to. Because you knew you're going to get this ability, you might still want to, fine.
Sure.
And then, of course, it is once per day. Keep that in mind. But you can spend 5 sorcery points, which is kind of expensive, like Jameson said. It would be a third of your points, a little over 30 of your points at that point to do it again. But you can do it again if you want to. And finally, at 18, if you can get to 18, which is always a challenge with any subclass that you build, is those capstones can feel really amazing, but you got to get there. Is you're immune to acid and poison damage, and granting immunity to player characters is not a common thing. Resistances, a lot of things give resistance, either spells or ability, class abilities, all that kind of stuff, racials even. But granting full immunity to poison damage is pretty cool. Acid's fine; it just doesn't come up all that often. But the biggest thing is going to be if you kind of fought your way through with the poison and acid spells. The payoff is now, because now stuff that is resistant or immune to poison and acid damage, specifically poison damage, you're just going to give them a very large screw you, and it's like, wait a minute, what is this weird cookie thing? It hurts. Not used to that causing me any pain. It's like, you haven't met my version yet. So it's a thing. It's all there. But again, the limitations are obvious with. A lot of stuff resists poison. Yep. They're limited on your acid spell choices. You're a sorcerer. You don't be around taking too much damage anyway. So for the resistances of all the ones immunities you do get,
and even the extra free damage, they have to be relatively close to you.
Maybe 30 feet from you, which is
at the minimum. Yeah. Versus 5 feet for the other one.
Yeah. So it's like
yeah.
So we went with a 3.5 out of a possible 5. Yeah. Like there's plenty of interesting options. Again, I love the flavor. This is basically a druid sorcerer in a lot of ways in terms of flavor, and I do like that. But again, there's a lot of give and take with what you have.
I'm also not crazy about the capstone. Like I'm glad that you get that, but at the same time, it's really boring for a capstone.
Yeah, I really wish they took the immunity, just getting not the immunity, but getting around the resistances part
earlier. Maybe get around resistances earlier and then immunities capstone or something.
And something else. Yeah. Get immunity and some other ability or something. Yeah.
Right. So that's a little, it's all right. Yep. But on the synergy side of things, again, the bonus to the acid and poison spells is nice to have that extra. But again, you really don't want stuff near you. You don't want people within 5 feet of you. And you really don't even want people within 30-foot radius either, just because still it's getting into the danger zone there.
No.
And it's not much damage. It also doesn't scale, which is a little sad. It'd be nice if it scaled a little bit. Maybe it was like a D6 equal to proficiency or something.
Why is that the first thing I thought of?
We've been doing this a while.
I mean.
So there's that. It's great that you have the defensive for the BPS resist, because that's going to be oftentimes a lot of the damage that's going to be coming in. Though you're playing at range most of the time anyway as a sorcerer, so you're hoping to not get hit at all, as Alex said. And it is, kind of expensive. I mean, it is pretty expensive. At level 20, it's
still a quarter of your
points. So it's all right. And you could easily just take something like Warcaster and get similar effects without the BPS resist.
Yep.
And with some other different bonuses. I mean, there's some overlap, but it is what it is. The problem is, the biggest problem is a lot of the stuff is focused on poison and acid pretty much exclusively.
Yep.
And being close to stuff. So those things are not great.
No.
If there was more bonus to, like as we said earlier, the overcoming resistances sooner, that would help.
Yep.
But to wait so long when there's only a very limited pool of poison,
even if you could get around resistance early, then you get around immunity late.
Swap, poison and acid spells to each other's damage or whatever. Which, I mean, I guess if you did take, there's like transmuted spell or whatever. That's an optional sorcerer thing.
Because it costs 1, then you could change
so
fireball to an acid ball.
That would be better. It would help. It would help.
It would help out a ton. If you wanted to maximize it, you'd be committing a lot of your sorcery points to maximizing that.
Right. So but that is an option but that's using an optional feature from, class stuff. So it is what it is on there. All that being said, we just went with a 3.5 as well. It's interesting. It does certain things well, but you are really committed to poison and acid.
Yep.
Which
otherwise it feels like you're wasting what your subclass is giving you.
Yeah. Depending on campaign setting and things like that, a lot of the creatures could just be resistant, and it doesn't. You can't do anything about it until level 18.
Yeah.
Though I will remind you as well, acid and poison are black and green dragons, respectively. So like their breath weapon does nothing to you. So at high end games, if there are black and green dragons, you're just like,
it's like
come at me,
come look at my butt,
and then it comes up and hits you with bite attacks.
He catches you with that big right hand.
But you have BPS resist.
Yeah, so knocks you off the tree. BPS resist. Yeah, you resisted 80 damage. Now it's 40. It's
You're still half dead.
Cool. Anyway. There's half my health.
So there's that. But yeah, very interesting. I like the flavor and theme of it.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I just feel like I would like to have seen a little bit more scaling to it.
Yeah.
And a little bit more versatility, because you are a little pigeonholed into poison and acid.
You are.
So it is what it is. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Check out our Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching.